Senjutsu. It's widely regarded as one of the greatest power-ups that one can receive in the Naruto universe. Whether you train with toads, or snakes, or woodpeckers, or otters, or slugs, or whatever Hashirama trained with, it's undeniable that getting a little Senjutsu into your chakra makes you many times stronger. And it's for a multitude of reasons, usually depending on where you train. Those who train in Ryuchi Cave gain the ability to breathe chakra and life into inanimate objects, giving you the ability to do things like create stone golems out of nothing. Those who train in Mount Muabuko gain things like froggy kumite that allow them to extend their blows, so even if you feel as though you've dodged a punch, the chakra senjutsu extension of their fist can still land a hit. Things like Hashirama's senjutsu ability, I don't know, made him better with wood. We just don't know. And there is still absolutely a future for Sage Mode in Boruto. Even though many people feel as though Shinobi Wear and Karma Marks and Otsutskis are taking over the planet, there is still very much avenues for people to get strong in traditional Naruto type ways. Mitsuki is an incredible example of this, a boy genetically engineered and grown to be the perfect snake sage. But what if I told you that Mitsuki isn't the only person that we're gonna see awaken a Sage Mode in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex? So obviously getting to see Mitsuki awaken his perfect snake sage mode that resembles the Tenseigan mode of Toneri is going to be incredible. What if I told you that snake sage mode wasn't the only sage mode we're gonna see after the time skip? See, while many people are speculating that Konohamaru is gonna study with Monkey King Enma now that he's the Hokage's aide and be the first ever monkey sage, that's not what I want to talk about. And honestly, that's not gonna happen. One, that would imply that we spent even a minute talking about Konohamaru, which Kishimoto has very clearly demonstrated that he doesn't want to do. And two, the creation of a new Sage Mode that for some reason Hiruzen had no access to this late in the game would be kind of crazy. No, what I want to talk about today is the return of the Toad Sage. And I'm not talking about the Toad Sage floating in a timeless void known as the Daikokuten. No, today I want to talk about the possibility of either Boruto or Sarada following Naruto's footsteps, traveling to Mount Muabuko, training in Senjutsu, and getting a massive power-up for the upcoming battle against the likes of Ada and Kawaki and Daemon and Code and his army of 10-tailed soldiers. Because some rather compelling evidence was brought to my attention that proves that Mount Muabuko might actually be the perfect place for people like Boruto to find some respite. Because not only is there a possibility that the Toads weren't affected by Ada's brainwashing, but there's also the possibility that there's somebody currently in Mount Muabuko very willing to train Boruto. And maybe Sarada. But before I get to explaining how Sarada or Boruto could awaken a Toad Sage Mode, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you love me speculating about how to make your favorite anime character strong, you're gonna love my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk all other anime. And if you just love the idea of me talking about anime, you're gonna love my anime podcast, Who Talk is Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So, the Toads in Mount Muabuko. We haven't seen them for what feels like forever. And that's because throughout the entirety of Boruto, we haven't seen them once. Which I guess kind of makes sense. Boruto, Sarada, Mitsuki, Kawaki, and everybody else aren't Toad Sages. The only living Toad Sage in Boruto right now is Naruto, and he's not really in a position to do much of anything. And even when Naruto was in a position to do much of anything, he no longer really relies on Sage Mode. Well, obviously he uses Sage Mode in conjunction with his KCM2 to be his strongest possible self. That level of strength pretty much exceeded anything that summoning a Toad could do for Naruto. And considering the fact that by the time that the last came around that Naruto was able to separate a construct of Kurama's chakra apart from his body and allow it to go rampage away from him, the concept of needing a big toad with a sword was pretty much outdated. However, Naruto has made it abundantly clear since losing Kurama that he still retains a massive amount of his power, as ever since the dead period after the conclusion of the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, Naruto recommitted himself to becoming a better sage, meaning he could hold his sage mode longer, pull in more Senjutsu chakra, and probably some other things. Sorry, Dorothy's parents are going back to China. We have dinner in 30 minutes. Side note, do you ever think we'll switch from doing this to like more of this when we're signaling, like looking at the time? Because nobody wears watches. This is stupid. So if Naruto insists, as a Toad Sage, he still holds a relevant amount of power to battle against the likes of Code and the Otsutsuki, that would imply to us that true mastery over Toad Sage mode is a much bigger boost than we previously thought. So the fact that Naruto would remain the only person with mastery over Toad Sage mode does seem a bit odd, since Konoha does have a positive relationship with Mount Muabuko, and Naruto believes that mastery over Toad Sage Mode would give him the ability to fight Code, who's hypothesized to be stronger than Ishiki. And while Naruto's confidence was probably placed in the wrong place, a power-up of any kind shouldn't be ignored, especially in a time as pressing as this. And considering the fact that we're all hypothesizing that Mitsuki's perfect Snake Sage mode is gonna make him relevant in terms of power scaling in the Boruto universe, why wouldn't being a perfect Toad Sage do the same? And thus, for a long time, people have speculated that Boruto would go and train in Mount Muabuko during the time skip. And honestly, I was one of those people. And while we don't have confirmation as to whether or not he's done that yet, considering the fact that during the 3-year time skip he was with Sasuke and that Code was chasing him around for 2 of those 3 years, that largely implies to us that Boruto was on the move. And if Boruto was in a place like Mount Muabuko, he probably wouldn't have to be on the move, though there is absolutely a possibility that Code could follow Boruto to Mount Muabuko. Though it's said, without knowing the secret path from Konoha to Mount Muabuko, it's impossible to get there without a reverse summoning. But who knows? Powers are wonky in Boruto. It's a possibility that Code could have used his claw marks or a portal to get to Mount Muabuko. Now, the reason that a lot of people believe that Boruto would train in Mount Muabuko during the time skip is because Kashin Koji was brought back to Mount Muabuko after his battle against Jigen/Ishiki. And since Kashin Koji is obviously Jiraiya's clone, people believe that it would be a cool moment if Jiraiya's clone trained Boruto. Kind of a passing of torch moment between Jiraiya, Kashin Koji, Naruto, and Boruto. And considering the fact that Kashin Koji is privy to a lot of Jiraiya's memories, the idea that he would be compelled to train his pupil's son isn't that crazy, especially when you consider the fact that Naruto, upon interacting with Kashin Koji, felt as though he was familiar, which made a lot of people believe that we were working our way up towards Jiraiya's back for Naruto moment. And whether or not that was a late game thing or through the capacity of watching his son being trained by a clone of his pupil, we didn't know. And even though the theory of Boruto training in Mount Muabuko with Kashin Koji does appear to be a bit thin now, especially when you consider the fact that in Chapter 1 and Episode 1 of Boruto, we see Boruto battling against Kawaki, and he doesn't activate Sage Mode, he activates his Karma marking and his Jogon. What if Boruto wasn't the one training in Sage Mode, or that battle that we see between Boruto and Kawaki is actually before he goes and trains in Sage Mode?
But Nick, everything that you're saying is currently working against the theory that Boruto and or Sarada went to Mount Muabuko to train.
So why are we talking about it today? Well, because today I got a rather compelling email. An email that brought up episode 461 of Naruto Shippuden, an episode called Hagoromo and Hamura. And while this episode is filler, what do we always say on this page? If filler conveys us information that doesn't contradict manga and tells us an answer to something that we didn't previously have the answer to, we're gonna use it, though sparingly. And in this episode, we get the backstory of how Hagoromo and Hamura came into conflict against Kaguya. And in this episode, we see Hagoromo and Hamura going to Mount Muabuko and talking to the Great Toad Sage before he was old and wrinkly. Now, during this expedition to Mount Muabuko, the Great Toad Sage shows Hagoromo and Hamura something rather interesting. See, within the confines of Mount Muabuko, which exists underground, there's something called the Memory Stone, which records the entirety of history above ground. And the Great Toad Sage uses this Memory Stone to show Hagoromo and Hamura everything that had happened with Kaguya prior to their birth, like the God Tree descending down from space and Kaguya following it, Kaguya finding her soon-to-be baby daddy, Tenzo, and how Kaguya was betrayed by the humans and cast Infinite Tsukiyomi to bring the entire world under her control. However, upon realizing that she would need some of the humans to battle against the future Otsutsuki threat, she released some of the humans and manipulated their memories to forget that she had ever used the Divine Tree in the first place. Is this premise sounding somewhat familiar? So, in essence, Hagoromo and Hamura were showed that Kaguya descended down to Earth and used the God Tree against humanity, altering their memories to believe that she's some benevolent deity that's meant to rule over them. Which means that technically within the confines of Mount Muabuko, there is a stone that tells the true history of everything that happens above ground. And the stone is not subjective. It's able to see through the powers of Shinjutsu, like Kaguya's ability to cast the entire world into Infinite Tsukiyomi and alter their memories. And the ability to alter somebody's memories is probably tied in somewhat to omnipotence, as we know from Ada's usage of omnipotence in Boruto that she has the ability to change the memories of the entire world. But since she's affecting humans on Earth and not the Earth itself, this omnipotence most likely does not affect the Memory Stone, which would mean that all of the toads in Mount Muabuko are privy to the fact that Ada has used omnipotence to alter the memories of every human on Earth. And since there's also a possibility that Mount Muabuko just straight up wasn't affected by by Ada's omnipotence, but considering the fact that you can walk from Konoha to Mount Mubuko, we know that it does exist on Earth. Mount Mubuko, whether or not it was affected or not, has the memory stone to unbrainwash them. And since obviously Ada is working against the interests of Konoha and Naruto, the one standing connection between Mount Mubuko and humans, and the memory stone is also privy to all events that happen above ground, and therefore they understand that Kawaki sealed away Naruto in the Daikokuten, there's no reason for us to believe that the Toads wouldn't try to move against Ada and Kawaki. Which means, at the very least, if Kashin Koji was affected by Ada's brainwashing, he would be able to break out of it through the usage of the memory stone. Which means that Kashin Koji would absolutely be primed to the possibility of training either Boruto or Sarada. But why am I saying Boruto or Sarada? Well, mostly because I believe thematically, Boruto training in Sage Mode doesn't really line up with what Kishimoto is trying to write. See, Boruto, while a large part of his character development journey was learning to respect his father and respect the amount of hard work and grit and determination it took for his father to become the man that he was, isn't following Naruto's path. I mean, obviously you could say both Boruto and Naruto were ostracized for the demons that were living inside of them, but Boruto's path is much closer to that of Sasuke's than it is to Naruto's. I mean, sure, both Boruto and Naruto were ostracized for the demons living inside of them, but Naruto was never thrown out of the village. And while Sasuke was never technically thrown out of the village, he did that to himself. Leaving the village and becoming a rogue ninja is Sasuke's story, not Naruto's. Add into the fact that a large amount of Boruto's power is tied into his dojutsu, the Jogan, and the similarities between him and Sasuke are much more than the similarities between him and Naruto. But this doesn't mean that there's absolutely no possibility that Boruto doesn't train in Sage Mode, as training in Sage Mode is actually a pretty legitimate counter to the Otsutsuki or anybody who wields a karma marking. Because mind you, the Otsutsuki and their Rinnegan have the ability to absorb ninjutsu, and those with karma markings have the ability to absorb ninjutsu in the same capacity. However, if you train in Mount Mubuko and activate a Toad Sage Mode, if anybody tries to absorb your chakra while in Sage Mode, they turn into stone. And therefore, if you wanted to battle against an Otsutsuki or a Karma Mark wielder, using Toad Sage Mode would actually be a really good idea, because any ninjutsu or just straight up chakra stolen from somebody using Toad Sage Mode would begin to petrify the person absorbing it. And then, of course, like I previously mentioned, the relationship between Boruto and Kashin Koji mirroring that of Naruto and Jiraiya would be kind of cool and cute. And that's not to mention the fact that Naruto meeting Kashin Koji through the capacity of him being a pupil to his son would give Naruto some closure on Jiraiya's death. And we all know that Kashin Koji's part of the story is far from over. Otherwise, why not kill him? Why have him clearly go back to Mount Mubuko? I mean, this is a man who was able to kill Jigen. I mean, 10% Jigen, but Jigen nonetheless. And while he was next to no threat for Ishiki, he still stood his own better than 99.9% of people would. And he is Jiraiya's clone. Naruto's gonna meet him at some point or another. But I just don't see Boruto's power-up coming through the means of Sage Mode. Well, it would definitely give him an edge over Kawaki. That's kind of what his Jogan is supposed to do in the first place. I mean, obviously both him and Kawaki are Karma Mark wielders, and Kawaki as a Karma Marking wielder of Ishiki has his dojutsu. And Boruto's dojutsu in the Jogan is supposed to be the mirror to this dojutsu and also be enough to defeat Kawaki, at least I believe thematically. But to see Boruto manifest Toad Sage Mode as a testament to the fact that he is the true son to Naruto would be cool. But the reason that I'm roping Sarada into this is because I can't believe I hadn't thought of it earlier. See, for a long time, and that's pretty much ever since Sarada awoke her MS while crying to Sasuke to save Boruto, I've been trying to speculate how Sarada is going to become powerful enough to be relevant in the grand scheme of Boruto, as being a dual MS wielder in Boruto truly is not enough. Sasuke with dual EMS and a 6-tome Rinnegan and 2 decades of experience battling against incredibly powerful foes was not enough. So how is a 16-year-old Sarada with a dual MS gonna be enough? Kishimoto isn't making it a secret at all that Sarada is supposed to be the person following Naruto's path. In fact, in chapter 1 of Two Blue Vortex, we see Sarada pleading with the 8th Hokage, Shikamaru, to give Boruto a chance to explain his innocence. And in this moment, Sarada states that just like the 7th Hokage, she's gonna bring not only her father, but also Boruto back to the village, as her idol isn't the 8th Hokage Shikamaru, but the 7th Hokage Naruto, making a very clear and obvious connection between Sarada and Naruto, and it's kind of always been there. Pretty much every time that Sarada's on screen, she talks about how much she looks up to Naruto and how much she wants to be like him, while also claiming that one day she wants to be Hokage, something that Boruto has never done. And this is what Kishimoto has been working at. He's slyly been trying to be like, oh look, the Uchiha likes the Uzumaki, but the Uzumaki likes the Uchiha, because making Boruto and Sarada hollow copies of their parents would have been boring. And while making Boruto and Sarada hollow copies of each other's parents isn't the most intriguing plotline, it's definitely better than the alternative. And thus with the idea that Mount Mubuko would be unaffected by Ada's brainwashing because of either the memory stone or them being separate from Earth or the fact that they're not humans, I began to realize that the real way that Sarada is going to emulate Naruto's strength and follow his path is Toad Sage mode. I mean, think about it. We've been speculating on how to keep Sarada relevant for a long time. I've made videos saying that she'll get Sasuke's eyes or she'll awaken a Rinnegan on her own. We speculated about the idea of her MS being hilariously broken, and so on and so forth. Everything we've looked at, we've been pulling our hair out on how to make Sarada as powerful as Kawaki or Code or Boruto. And what if in actuality the answer is incredibly simple? What if Sarada does the thing she's been talking about doing for the entirety of Boruto? What if she follows the path of the 7th Hokage? We've never seen an Uchiha outside of Hagoromo train in Sage mode. And while obviously calling Hagoromo an Uchiha is kind of a stretch, we saw what happened the last time that somebody with a Sharingan trained at Mount Muabuko. He became the Sage of Six Paths. And while there was obviously a lot more to him becoming the Sage of Six Paths than Mount Muabuko, the combination of Toad Sage mode and a dual MS would be deadly. Because think about it. Think about how Sage mode works. The reason that Hashirama's Sage mode was so insanely powerful is because Hashirama was able to activate his Sage mode and then stand still. Because in order to pull in Senjutsu Chakra, you gotta be standing still. Now, the reason that Hashirama could stand still is because when he activated his Sage mode, he would put himself on top of a wood construct and control the wood construct to move him wherever he needed to go. Or he would stand on top of his 1,000 arm Bodhishiva or his wood golem. Essentially, Hashirama would activate Sage mode, pull in Senjutsu Chakra, and then let the wood do the talking, which is what I do to your mother. That was rude. I don't know why I said that. I'm sure she's a lovely lady, which is why I let the wood do. Stop! But if Hashirama was able to maximize the abilities of a Sage mode because he was able to stand still, what would somebody who was wielding a Susanoo be able to do? See, because within the capacity of a full body Susanoo, you just float there in the Susanoo's head. I mean, technically you can float wherever you want, but most people float in the head. Now, obviously, the key problem with this is the fact that Sarada probably won't be able to awaken a full-body Susanoo because she doesn't have EMS, and the only people outside of Kakashi we've ever seen awaken a full-body Susanoo had EMS. Sarada awoke her Sharingan through love, which is kind of a fairy dust statement we can throw at anything that we want to make work. It's like the God works in mysterious ways of the Boruto universe. But if, for some reason, Sarada were to be able to awaken a full-body Susanoo and therefore could stand still after the activation of said Susanoo, activating Sage mode would allow her to stand still, pull in Senjutsu Chakra, and feed that directly to said full-body Susanoo. Which, mind you, people with Rinnegans in their palms or karma markings wouldn't be able to absorb because Mount Muabuko Senjutsu Chakra, which would give Sarada a Susanoo which was invulnerable to absorption and therefore make her incredibly relevant on a battlefield against Otsutsuki's or Karma Mark wielders. Not to mention just all of the incredible passive buffs to speed, strength, taijutsu ability, and chakra usage that come along with being a perfect Toad Sage. And since Sarada is angling to essentially be Naruto Part 2, but with Sharingan, the curveball of her being trained by Kashin Koji as opposed to Boruto would be really cool, as Kashin Koji would probably not only see a lot of Naruto in her, but would also probably be told a lot about Naruto by spending time with her. And this would explain why in the battle between Boruto and Kawaki, we don't see Boruto activate a Sage mode, because in actuality, the person who learned Sage mode was Sarada, which not only thematically fits, but also makes sense because Kashin Koji wasn't killed off and makes her relevant in the grand power scaling of everything. So I believe that Sarada stands just as good a chance as being trained in Toad Sage mode as Boruto. Now, Boruto could possibly swap out Sasuke as a sensei for Kashin Koji because Sasuke is more than likely dead, and therefore it would kind of be like Kakashi handing off Naruto to Jiraiya, but Sasuke was also heavily involved in the training of Sarada, and therefore Sarada could just as easily be passed off to Kashin Koji as Boruto. Or they could both be passed off. What do you guys think? Do you believe that Boruto or Sarada stand a chance at becoming perfect Toad Sages? Tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, hit that noti bell. Done in time for dinner. See ya. I don't want you to get the idea that it only takes me a half hour to film a YouTube video. I have been in a panic-induced flow state, and this was a short video.